Welcome everybody, Victus here, reseller for ProfitTrailer and PT Feeder. Please see the links at the bottom of the description of the video. If you're interested in buying any of these products, you can buy them through me. And my disclaimer that I'm not a trading professional, so don't rely on my input because it's all opinion and probably bad at that. Okay. Last video we went through and talked about my trading philosophy on ProfitTrailer and how to trade conservatively, and we ended just before we started talking about the pairs file. So we're going to go through the pairs file and the settings that are in there and how I set those up, or how I like to set those up when I do trading. I do it to keep myself safe. I do it to try to maximize the trades that I'm going to make. But in the end, I'll settle for a few less trades if I can have fewer bags that I'm holding at any one time. I don't like to hold bags. Nobody likes to hold bags. And you know, bags by now are those coins that are at a loss position that you end up either holding on for long periods of time to try to get them back into a profitable position, or selling them off at a loss, reducing your profit. All right, here we go with the pairs file discussion. So let me go through the pairs file quickly and we'll look at that. So go into configuration and go into pairs and let's walk through it. So you can see that I've got a list of about 12 to 15 pairs here, and these are the ones that I've gone through and researched and have in as my trading pairs. So instead of saying all enabled pairs equals all, I have it listed for the coins that I'm using, and you can tell by the way that these are structured that this is Binance, just by the way that the pairs are structured, because each exchange is different. Of course, you got to have trading enabled. Panic sell is false, all sell only mode is false, and all DCA enabled here. I've got it set to kick in at just under 1% loss. So while a coin is above that value, 0.9% negative in its profit margin, then it stays out of DCA and stays in the pairs log here. But once it goes below that, it will go into the DCA log. And yes, I'll show you my DCA log. This is, again, just after February, first 2 weeks of February, and we had the big Bitcoin downturn. And you can see that this philosophy kept me pretty much out of the woods. I do have 5. I did turn it up a bit. I think I had six trading pairs turned on. And ideally, I'm telling you to keep that lower. If I had that at 3, like I'm about to tell you, then I would have only had 3 bags in here, but we're doing okay. All right, let me jump back over to pairs. So again, the point there is that pairs will stay in the pairs file if they're above a negative 0.9%, and then you'll be hunting for those higher percent gains that we have. And you can see down here, I'll talk about that, the sell area. I've got it at a little over 3.25%, a little over 3% here. All right. So, and this, of course, if you haven't done this on Binance, you should do this. Use BNB for your trading fees. And this is how you set it up. You set trading enabled equals false, and you hide that in your bot because you have to buy some manually. And then in Binance, in the user interface, in your settings, you actually turn on a setting that says use BNB for my trading fees. All right. So in the buy area, I bounce back and forth between using a low BB, a very simple low BB setting, and an EMA gain setting. In low BB, I stay between, say, a -10 and can't type, and a positive 30. And that's a percent, and that's a percent above or below the low BB line. Negative 10 would be 10% below the low BB line, and 30 would be 30% above it, or almost at the midpoint between the high and the low line. I would use negative 10 if the market was bad or pretty negative, and I would use a 30% above number, or anywhere between 0 and 30%, depending on if the market was very strong. If the market's strong and everything's going up and things aren't dipping down very much, you might have to run the all buy value up to about 30% to try to catch coins. But again, if the market does turn south, you've got to watch that value very closely, because at 30, if it starts turning negative, Bitcoin starts going down, or some bad news happens, you'll buy a bunch of coins very quickly at that price and end up in a loss position. So you got to watch that if you go up that high. That's not very conservative. I've been using an EMA gain setting, which again, Nafi was using in his settings. And again, these are slightly modified from that, but EMA gain says if you're in your all buy value setting there, if it's 0.47% negative or below the lowest EMA line, then buy that. So you coin values wander due to their volatility above and below the EMA gain values. There's two EMA gain lines that you set in your indicators file that go up and down. And let me save that and switch to the indicators. And you can see in the EMA gain that got a period of 1800, and the EMA 1 is 20 and the EMA 2 is 5. So that's the settings that I've been using to watch the EMA lines. All right. The final value here is the all buy value limit of a -3, and that's a 3% below the EMA gain line. And what that is a lower limit for the buy. So you want the bot to buy if you're using EMA gain. You don't want it to buy if it's just absolutely crashing below that value. Again, that's another safety switch to say, if this thing is really tanking, then let's let it go down a bit, and let's let the EMA values on the EMA average lines, let's let them catch up to where the coin is before we buy any more of it. So recommend doing something in the 2 to 5% range there, and that's something you'll have to play with. I've not experimented a lot with different values there, but I just try to limit it. All trailing buy here is set pretty low, because I don't want to risk it coming back up with a big number like a 0.5 or even a 0.3, because this is trying to trail down, and because it's not trailing down a whole lot, I don't want my coin to buy if it gets above the EMA gain number that I've got set there in the all buy value. So I keep that fairly tight. Also, trailing does not work if you get below the all buy value limit. So that's something to keep in mind, that if it buys below that, then your trailing is not going to kick in for EMA gain. It does for low BB. There's no limiter on trailing. I like to use all max cost percentage when I'm buying instead of all max cost, because it uses a percentage of your TCV, your total cost, total current value. That gives you a fairly big buy when you make the buy, and you don't have to keep up with the all max cost and adjust that all the time based on your balance changing. I use 12.5, and that's another holdover from NAFI, and I vary that between 10 and 15%. But at that number, if you have the next value, 3 trading pairs active at any one time, and again, like I said, I had 6. If I'd followed NAFI's lead and kept that at 3, it would have kept me out of danger a little bit more. But you can vary this between 3 and 6. So between 3 and 6. But the 12.5%, if you have 3, will keep you at about 40% of your budget as well. And I think I had that set. All max cost percentage. No, I didn't. I needed to bring that over and put that in as an actual hard setting. I was going to show you that, so I will add that in a moment. But right now, just keeping 3 pairs and 12.5% will keep you at around 40% of your budget. Again, we talked about the spread earlier. Keeping the spread low and tight keeps you from buying coins when they're crashing or when they're spiking. Max buy spread, if the difference between the bid and the ask is more than 1.2%, then don't buy it. If it's a high spread, that means the coin is going down very quickly, potentially, and you don't want it. So wait till it's more stable before you pick it up. Also, the min by volume, I mentioned this earlier in the video, keeping between 750 and 1,000. But with the pairs that I have selected, I'm comfortable lowering that number because I've gone through and I've hand-picked the pairs at the top. Though I still do have a limit. If one of those pairs for some reason has a volume that drops off very quickly and I haven't noticed it, this keeps me safe at 500. At least I know that if it drops for some reason, you know, I've got this limit set. Oh, here's the number I was looking for earlier, the min by balance percentage. So this is the hard 40% of my balance that I would like to keep in the coin. And I had that set lower, and I just changed it for the video to show you, you know, do what I say and not what I do. I think I had it at 10, but I increased it here because that is really what I believe you should do. And you keep the remaining balance, or 50% of that of your balance, for using in DCA. All right. I believe that is it. So I'm going to stop here, and we will catch back up with you on the next video, where we'll talk about the sell settings and we'll talk about the DCA settings. So thanks for joining me for part 2 of how to be wise with your trading. And remember to subscribe if you like these videos. Thanks.